From Augustine's Confessions, Oxford Classics. Book 3, Section 7. I was unaware of the existence of another reality, that which truly is. And it was as if some sharp intelligence were persuading me to consent to the stupid deceivers when they asked me, where does evil come from? And is God confined within a corporeal form? Has he have hairs and nails? And can those be considered righteous who had several wives at the same time and killed people and offered animals in sacrifice? In my ignorance, I was disturbed by these questions, and while traveling away from the truth, I thought I was going toward it. I did not know that evil has no existence except as a privation of good, down to the level which is altogether without being. How could I see this, when for me to see meant a physical act of looking with the eyes and of forming an image in my mind? I had not realized that God is a spirit, John 4:24. Not a figure whose limbs have length and breadth and who has a mass, for mass is less in a part than it is in its whole, and if it is unlimited, it is less in a part defined within a given space than it is unlimited extension. It is not everywhere entire as a spirit, and as God, moreover, I was wholly ignorant of what is in ourselves, which gives us being, and how Scripture is correct in saying that we are in God's image. I also did not know that true inward justice which judges not by custom, but by the most righteous law of Almighty God. By this law, the moral customs of different regions and periods were adapted to their places and times. While that law itself remains unaltered everywhere and always, it is not one thing at one place or time, or another thing at another. Accordingly, Abraham and his son, and Jacob and Moses and David, and all those praised by the mouth of God were righteous. When untrained minds judge them wicked, they judge by man's day, 1 Corinthians 4:3, and assess the customs of the entire race by the criterion of their own moral code. It is as if a man ignorant of which piece of armor is designed for which piece of the body should want to cover the head with a greave or put his leg in a helmet, and then complain that it is not a good fit. Or it is as if on a public holiday, when trading is prohibited after noon, someone is furious not to be allowed to sell in the afternoon something which he is at liberty to sell in the morning. Or as if in a house one sees something being touched with the hands by a particular slave, which the waiter which serves the wine cup is not allowed to do, or as if something is allowed to happen behind the stables which is not permitted in the dining room, and a man is indignant on that ground. Though it is not one house and one family, the same liberties are not given to all members to do what they please anywhere they like. This is the style of those who are irate when they hear that something was allowed to the just in that age which is not granted to the just now, and that God gave one command to the former and another to the latter for reasons of a change in historical circumstances, though both ancient and modern people are bound to submit to the same justice. Yet in one and the same person on a single day and in the same house, they may see one action fitting for one member to perform another action fitting for another. What has been allowed during a long period is not permitted 1 hour later. An act allowed or commanded in one corner is forbidden, and subject to punishment if done in an adjacent corner. Does that mean that justice is liable to variation and change? No. The times which it rules over are not identical, for the simple reason that they are times. But the grasp of human beings, whose life on earth is short, is not competent to harmonize cause and effect valid in earlier ages, and among other nations, of which they have no experience in relation to the times and peoples of whom they have direct knowledge. Yet they can easily observe in a single body, or at one time, or in one house, what is fitting for one member, at what moments, and for which parts or persons. By the one variation they are outraged, with the other they see no difficulty. At that time I did not know that these things, or give any thought to them. On all sides they hit me in the eye, and I failed to see them when I wrote poetry. I was not allowed to place a foot where I wished, but had to use different kinds of feet at different points and different meters. Even in the same place, in the same verse, one could not put the same foot in every place. The art of poetic composition did not have different rules in different places, but had all the same rules at all times. I had not the insight to see how the justice to which good and holy people were obliged to submit embraces within its principles all that it prescribes, for all times in a far more excellent and sublime way, And although it is no respect subject to variation, yet it is not given all at once, but at various times, and prescribed in different contexts what is proper for the circumstances. In my blindness, I reprehended the Holy Fathers, not only for acting at the time as God commanded and inspired them, but also for predicting the future as God revealed it to them. Can it be wrong at any time or place to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself? Therefore, shameful acts which are contrary to nature, such as the acts of the Sodomites, are everywhere, and always to be detested and punished. Even if all people should do them, they would be liable to the same condemnation by divine law, for it has not made men to use one another in this way. Indeed, the social bond which should exist between God and us is violated when the nature of which he is the author is polluted by perversion of sexual desire. In saying that vicious acts contrary to human customs are to be avoided, we take account of variations in custom, so that the mutually agreed convention of a city or nation, confirmed by custom or law, is not to be violated by the lust of a citizen or foreigner. Any element that does not fit into the pattern of the whole is unacceptable to society. But when God commands something contrary to the customs or laws of a people, even if that has never been previously done, it has to be done. If it has fallen into disuse, it must be restored. If it has not been established, it must be established. If it is lawful for a king in a city within his realm to give an order which none before him, nor he himself has previously issued, and if it is not contrary to the social contract of a city to obey, or indeed if it would be contrary to the social agreement not to obey, for there is a general consent in human society that kings should be obeyed, then how much more must God, the governor of all his creation, be unhesitatingly obeyed in whatever he commands? Just as among the authorities in human society, a superior authority has a greater power to command obedience than an inferior officer, so God is supreme over all. We may next consider the case of injurious acts, where there is a lust to do harm either by verbal insult or physical violence. In either case, the impulse may be caused by the motive of revenge, as in the case of an enemy against enemy, or with that of gaining possession of someone else's property, or as in the case of a bandit attacking a traveler, or with the intention of averting evil, as when people attack someone they fear, or out of envy, as when the less fortunate may attack someone better off, or when a man who has met with success in some undertaking turns against someone who he fears may become his equal, or when he has pain to see is already his equal, or merely by the pleasure of watching other people's pain, like the spectators of the gladiators, or those who mock and ridicule others. These are the chief kinds of wickedness. They spring from the lust for domination, or from the lust of the eyes, or from sensuality, either one or two of these, or all three at once. 1 John 2:16. Thus an evil living person transgresses your decalogue of 3 commands, with our duty to you, and 7 with our duty to our fellow human beings, a psaltery of 10 strings. God most high and most gentle. But what vicious acts can hurt you, God? You are not capable of being damaged, or what injuries can be inflicted on you who cannot be harmed? Your punishment is that when human beings do to their own injury, because even when they are sinning against you, their wicked actions are against their own souls. Iniquity lies to itself. Psalm 26:9. When men either corrupt or pervert their own nature, which you made and ordered, or when people immoderately use what is allowed, or when turning to what is forbidden they indulge in a burning lust for that use which is contrary to nature, Romans 1:26, or that they may be held guilty of bitter hostility against you in mind and words, and in kicking against the goad, or they brazenly delight in the collapse of the restraints of human society, and in private caucuses and splits, indulging their personal likes and dislikes. That is the outcome when you are abandoned, fount of life, and the one true creator and ruler of the entire universe. When from a self-concerned pride and false unity is left in the part, return to you is along the path of devout humility. You purify us of evil habits, and you are merciful to the sins we confess. You hear the groans of the prisoners, and release us from the chains we have made for ourselves, on condition that we do not erect against you the horns of a false liberty by avaricious desire to possess more, and to the risk of losing everything through loving our private interests more than you, the good of all that is. I was ignorant of these principles, and laughed at your holy servants and prophets. By my mockery, I only achieved the result that I became ridiculous to you. Gradually and unconsciously, I was led to the absurd trivialities of believing that a fig weeps when it is picked, and that the fig tree, its mother, sheds milky tears. Yet if some Manichee saint ate it, provided that the sin of picking it was done not by his own hand but by another's, then he would digest in his stomach, and as a result would breathe out angels, or rather, as he groaned in prayer and retched, he would bring up bits of God. These bits of the most high and true God would have remained chained in that fruit, if it had not been liberated by the tooth and belly of that elect saint. And I, in my pathetic state, believed that more mercy should be shown to the fruits of the earth than to human beings for whose sake the fruits came to be. Indeed, if some hungry person, not being a Manichaean, had asked for this food, and if one gave him a piece, that morsel would have been considered to be condemned to the capital punishment. You put forth your hand from on high, and from this deep darkness you delivered my soul. For my mother, your faithful servant, wept for me before you more than mothers weep when lamenting their dead children. By the faith and spiritual discernment which she had from you, she perceived the death which held me when you heard her, Lord. You heard her, and did not despise her tears which she poured forth to wet the ground under her eyes in every place where she prayed. You heard her. Hence she was granted the dream by which you encouraged her to allow me to live with her, and to have me at the same table in the house.